5:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. If Jessica, if you'd record the attendance. Article 2, approval of the agenda. If you haven't had a chance to look at the agenda for tonight, take a minute and I'll take a motion to approve that agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Article 3, approval of the May 21st meeting minutes. If you haven't had a chance to look at those yet, you would do so, and I'll take a motion to approve those.
A motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Article 4, acknowledge visitors, any visitors that are here to speak, and I think we do have a visitor, maybe?
Or
Yeah.
you could have them under the.
This is what Metro Police. So we can have them speak on
Oh,
Metro Police.
okay. Anyone online? No, okay. Moving on to Article 5, facade improvements. Danielle, you gonna?
Hi, it's nice to see you guys.
You too.
Hope you're enjoying this heat wave here.
It's summer.
Our office in Grand Rapids doesn't have AC and it's been.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so if you guys ever had a chance to go through the site improvement grant guidelines and application, as well as the draft evaluation checklist, have been updated based on the feedback that we received from the board as per the last time we talked about this. I think that was maybe back in April or May. So just kind of to highlight some very quick overview of the changes that were made. I did incorporate some of the potential funding priorities. So that includes kind of more of an extensive list of potential projects that the DDA would be interested in placing priority over for funding certain applications. And then I also expanded the list of eligible projects a little bit to incorporate some of the feedback that I received from the board. Some of which including exterior painting or siding, parking lot reallocation to the side or rear of the building. Some of the funding priorities that were added compared to the last time you saw this application or this sheet is essentially most of that second column there on the second page on the top right. And with regard to ineligible projects, the differences there between this version and last version include mechanical heating or cooling systems and ductwork. So that would not be an eligible project for reimbursement. Maximum grant amounts from the survey that staff and Andrea had sent out. It seemed like the general consensus was that the board felt pretty comfortable with these three tiers of different funding levels. The first of which for highest priority and highest dollar amount for reimbursement allocated for front facade improvements, including building and utilities. The second of which for other site improvements such as landscaping, signage, sidewalks, and so forth. And then the third would be more those lesser general improvements such as benches, awning, decorative murals, public art, things like that. Additional information. All of that information stayed the same. You can only apply or be awarded funding every 3 years. The applicant can be eligible for reimbursement if the project meets this criteria up to a 12-month timeframe, but they'd have to show receipts and so forth of that work being completed. And then, of course, noting that site improvement grants can apply to exterior only and not interior improvements. And then lastly, on the last page of the guidelines includes the application information, which of course would then be required to be submitted with supplemental materials such as renderings, any site improvement details, lighting details, anything that would be applicable for supporting documentation for as you guys go through and get applications and score them. Any questions on this? Yeah.
Yes, real quick. So just point of clarification, this is a reimbursement. So the business owner must do all the work first and then submit receipts for reimbursement?
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
that's how this is written. So one of these pages explains the process.
I just hate to have somebody start, they get, 50,000 from the DDA to help them with the project.
Mhm.
And then they're like, yeah, we're going out of business now.
Yeah, it's not
And they
gonna,
don't finish the project.
yeah.
And then we're stuck with.
Yep. So the way that this would operate would be essentially a reimbursement program. So you could say, I did this work and now I'm going to come to the DDA to reimburse this project and it kind of can flex too, depending on, like, let's say if you guys get an influx of 10 applications or something like that. So then you would have to then use that scoring evaluation criteria to then decide, like, okay, well, we only have this $150,000 per year. So now we can utilize the scoring criteria to figure out which projects get that priority reimbursement.
And there's no guarantee that distribution is going to happen every year, even if you're the only business that applies,
Mhm.
does not necessarily automatically mean that they will get monies, correct?
That is correct. There is information in here that notes that the DDA essentially has their full discretion on how that funding is allocated and so forth.
So we could wait all the way till the end, or it could be progress billings of things they've completed, or,
Will have to be completed
Mhm.
because they have to turn in receipts.
yeah, let's say they only finished part one of a 4-part big project. Do we give them the part one?
Partial reimbursement for
Or do you wait till the whole thing's done?
phases of the project.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that could be up to your discretion as a board. So if you want to write something in these guidelines that says, if you have a 3-phase project that spans over, let's say maybe 10 years, you can do the work for phase 1, get reimbursed for phase 1, as long as it meets eligible criteria. But you couldn't then promise, we'll reimburse you for all 3 phases.
Mhm.
But you would have to
Every
apply
3 years.
phase by
too.
phase. Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think just to maybe keep it clean,
Mhm.
that if they have a project that they submit an application for, that
Mhm.
it has to be completed within that 12-month period.
Mhm.
And then they can be reimbursed for those things that are completed for that project,
Mhm.
like,
And then they can submit another application,
for another project,
but they're gonna. have to
3
wait
years.
correct. They're gonna have to
Yeah.
wait 2 more years
Yeah.
to be able to.
Otherwise, there's potential for, if it's phased, they get one part of it done and then something happens.
Yeah.
And then it's a project that's partially completed
Mhm.
that maybe isn't going to meet the sort of expectation we have for this program.
Do we leave it general, like phasing to be determined based on the project? So some you might feel comfortable with, some you might not.
Well, I
Just
think
to-
it depends. Oh, go ahead.
Can I just interject on a couple of items to make sure we're considering? One is if we're looking at phasing, we want to be careful that we don't run over every budget year, because each year this will become back before you as a board to determine how much to allocate for that year. So then let's say we had a large, this is a great example this year. You guys committed significant dollars to the bridge and to the Friendship Park project. If you said you wanted to put your eggs in that basket this year and kind of scale back the site improvement grant program, you can do that. So I think phasing it could cause some issues if something came up that was a bigger project for the community. And then the other thing, Danielle, I don't know if you wrote this in here, I didn't see it, but are we looking at this being an application once per year or on a rolling 12 months to where at any point somebody can apply? I've seen it done both ways.
So from what I recall, and please correct me, but I think we had initially discussed that it was going to be rolling based on like how the first
Mhm.
rollout went. And then at that point, correct me if I'm wrong again, that the DDA would then assess, like, maybe we have an annual application deadline if we get 10 that come in. And so
Okay.
last I thought we had discussed that it would be more of a rolling basis as you assess as they come through. Alternatively, it might be something to think about to have an annual deadline, because then you know what you're going to get in.
Mhm.
So then the scoring criteria, scoring them would be quite a bit easier to find what those priorities are going to be.
And then just my last food for thought was, this is 100% reimbursement up to a dollar amount, or is it going to be a percentage of the overall project?
That was something that we had also discussed last time. I've seen it done in many different ways. Some communities do 50%, some do 100%. The way that this is written is that it could be up to 100%, just as long as it meets that maximum dollar amount. But it doesn't specify that the property owner or the business owner would then have to kick in a certain percentage of their own funding for their own projects. But last I recall that we talked about this, I think that I don't recall that that was decided or not, if that's which way you guys preferred to go.
And so those are just things just to keep in your mind as we move through this process.
I think they're
Yeah,
really good
grab a pen.
points. I'm wondering to start out with, and maybe this was part of that conversation we had with, let's go ahead and not require that they only get a certain percentage of the funding for their project. But to just say, we've got these dollar amounts, sort of project sizes, and see how it goes. And if then we get a flood of people that are wanting, then we adjust based on that. But to kick it off and get it rolling, to sort of make it easier, simpler, easier, cleaner.
I mean, part of me does like the 50%, just because they've got, the business owner has an investment, city has an investment, it's a partnership. If I can get something at 50% off to improve the facade of my building, that would hopefully help people engage my business, I think that's a pretty big win. And then the hope would be that we would get a couple people to nibble on it. And then that way the dollars go farther. But then there's that argument that you're making of, well, will anyone step to the plate and actually do it if we don't cover 100% of it?
I may suggest too, that if you decide to do a 50-50, that maybe there's some portions, if we get in an application for a remodel plus a facade treatment,
Mhm.
that you could assume that their portion of the 50% might be something that's it's not eligible for the facade grant. So maybe they're doing the interior remodel with exterior remodel as well, and you could calculate the value or their percentage as part of that interior work that's not necessarily eligible for the, so.
And I personally I think the 100% to start with. And then if there are quite a few in years 2, 3, 4, whatever the case may be, it may dwindle down to a 50%. But if I was the first applicant in the first year and I got 50%, and then you upped it to say, okay, now we're gonna pay 100%, I'd be like, thank you very much. I guess I could have waited another year to possibly get that.
You make a
Would you
valid.
be bummed the other way around too?
I would be bummed a little bit the other way around,
Tough.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have, either the wherewithal or whatever, the knowledge to go and do something about it. Didn't want to take on that risk, not
Could you-
knowing if I was gonna get reimbursed or not.
Could you leave a range? Like it could be 50 to 100%, but not be a little,
And leave it up to the DDA's discretion.
yeah. Or is that too?
There again, and I guess we don't have to give an explanation, but there again, I guess I would ask, so why did I get 50?
Mhm.
Scott got
Right, right.
what, was there something about his project that qualified him to get fully reimbursed and I only
Be
got
it
50?
scored higher or something, or?
Yeah, I will note that through my research, when I was kind of putting together this guideline sheet, that it did appear to me that more often than not, there was some sort of match, some sort of like financial skin in the game from property owners or business owners, to show that they're serious about this project. And granted, it operates as a reimbursement in many ways, so that, they're doing the work and they're committed to the work. But that's just something to know.
And
That's
you-
not to say that it can't be 100% or, flex on that.
Don't
but-
know whether they started out, like giving 100%, and then everybody at this point, if they've been running those programs for a while, it's evolved into,
Mhm.
I've been a part of two of them in other communities and they started out with a match from the get-go. They did not do the 100% upfront. They were a little bit different communities though. So I would say that we pick a position. I think going with a range though does pit business against business. Like, why did you get 50 and you got 80? I think you just, either you go 100 or you pick 80 or 75 or whatever the percentage is. And I think we just have to roll with that. But I agree with Danielle. I've seen it where there's always been some skin in the game. Now, granted, your large redevelopments are going to have skin in the game because they're going to be putting, you know, if they were to redo,
Yeah.
you know, the Cascade Commons, or I always forget the name of it, but you know, that whole place, it's millions of dollars and $100,000, you know, easily could help them, but it's not going to be as large a percentage for another small business owner.
Considering that we do have an evaluation criteria, and I like to make things complicated, though, there is a very clear way to quantify, you know, the value of their project. If we said, look, if your score on the evaluation criteria meets this threshold, then you're eligible for 100%. But if it meets this threshold, it's only 75, whatever.
Yeah, you could do
There
that
That's
is,
kinda nice.
yeah.
based on the scoring.
Yep.
Yeah, and one thing that maybe on this criteria too, we add to it is like their total investment for their project
Mm.
that's just bigger than what is
Oh, that's a good one too.
the site. I mean, overall site improvements, not just what we would reimburse for.
I just like the whole idea of if someone's investing in their business, they're probably gonna be a long-term member of the DDA or participating in the community for a long term. If someone gets it for free, they may or may not knowing where they're at in their business journey. But if someone's gonna invest $5,000, 10,000 or 50,000 of their own money, that means it's their business thriving for how many years to come. That's important to them. That's my point of view.
Yeah.
When it's free, there's
Not much
there's no
value.
risk or thought.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So-
Could someone take the money and then redo it if it was 100% and then sell the property after?
And then
Like,
it's a
flip
whole
it.
new concept that comes in. I mean, you always run that risk, but I feel like that's a really good partnership at 50%. Or 75%, whatever we do decide.
So what if we were to go back and take this with some of the comments from tonight and then come up with a
Yep.
couple more criterias for overall site improvements,
Mhm.
plus that tiered evaluation like
Yeah.
I like
Andrew
the
was saying, where it says
Yeah.
if it scores here,
Mhm.
this is, you know, how much
I
you would be
like that
eligible
too.
for.
Yeah.
Okay. And we haven't really talked about implementation once we actually solidify. I think we're really close. I think this is great. We've been talking about it for a while. Just food for thought. Maybe next time we can talk about when we would want to implement this. And I'm thinking maybe with our budget in 2025. We only got 6 meetings left. I don't know what kind of traction we would get the next 6 months. Just so maybe think about that before we meet next month.
We ever get like
feel
pre-interest,
we
like or the message is kind of out already or no? Like,
Yeah,
they-
I know for a fact that Grace has talked to a few businesses that are interested and they're waiting to see this, so for sure.
okay.
And I guess we could do pre-applications too, right? I mean, we
Sure.
could do it and set ourselves up for 2025 and know what
Mhm.
kind of
We
interest.
kind of
we have.
already know what's maybe the interest is
Mhm.
It might,
before.
yeah, actually.
I
that
feel
might be
like
a
we
good
set
idea
the
to-
goal of we align fully on this in the August or July or August meeting, whichever comes first. Sometimes we don't have a July meeting. And our plan is to roll it out September 1st.
Mhm.
And so that way,
Communicate it and do pre-applications for 2025 or for 2025 projects.
yeah,
That aligns too with like launching the concepts, right? So
Mhm.
kind of go together. Would be a good thing.
Yeah, and some other things that we're gonna be talking about coming up in this meeting with Metro Cruise and with Heritage Days and some of the things where I think the DDA is gonna get a lot more visibility in the next few months, which is gonna help us get the word out about stuff like this as well.
Okay.
and then if we set that date, it avoids us from kicking the can down the road, right? It kind of puts in motion like, we're gonna do this and this is gonna be the date.
Mhm.
Yep.
I like it. I also, as we were talking, I'm almost thinking if you guys are supportive of this idea, maybe adding a second sheet here that explains the process and how it all works, which I thought was in here, but I guess I read it in a different spot and but regardless, I think maybe that would be helpful for people to understand that this isn't just like, you know, we're giving you all this money, do what you want with it. This operates as more of a partnership, more of that reimbursement type of process.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll have these changes ready for you guys by your next meeting. And then, as Jade mentioned, we'll talk about the implementation side.
Sounds great.
Sounds
you.
like
Cool.
we're close.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Article 6, consider approval of funding for the Stone House.
Yes, so I think I alluded to this a little bit at our last meeting in regards to the board's desire and the community's desire to get possession of the Stone House. Actually, today, the keys were delivered. We actually took possession today, which is
Awesome.
great. So now I actually drove over there earlier today and I forgot the keys in my office, but I sat in the parking lot. I'm like, okay, so what can we do with this place? And I think my mind just started to go all over the place. So I put a report in here for you. I won't read the whole thing, but I definitely see where it is, and I did verify, it is in the district. I think the last time we talked, there was some
Thank
debate.
you
It's
for
the
it.
very last parcel in the district on Orange Avenue. So like I said, we closed on it, took possession today, and looking to see if there was a desire from the DDA to actually fund this as an asset of the DDA.
In the discussion was like, so as soon as you bring it in, say, we were fragmenting with the discussion of the discussion fragment to, is it even in the DDA,
Yeah.
right? And can we
Mhm.
even act on it? But then the next piece was when we concluded, we said, hey, you know what, it's probably gonna take a considerable amount of financial backing to turn it into something amazing. So there's kind of a choice. You purchase the property and then it's like, well, then what do you do with said property to turn it into something that really activates the community? So I guess the key question is great, the DDA may purchase it and bring it in and we use, say, $600,000-700,000, but then what do we do with it? And it's gonna take probably another $1 million to maybe turn it into something incredible. And what that looks like and what kind of partnership does that look like with the city? If they're now going to invest in it, or do we have a situation where the city invests in the property and now the DDA passes the baton, now turn it into something that activates the community? That's my only challenge of, okay, hey, we're gonna buy it, but then what do we do with it?
Right. And I think there's a couple different approaches. Long-term financing, we can look at different financing mechanisms that are out there for if we were to do some major renovations. But I also think that activating the space in its current state is gonna be a little easier than what I even anticipated. It's pretty open inside. I think we could actually do you're not talking large scale events, you know, like the Metro Cruise is doing with the pit stop and the warm up, but some really intimate events, art shows, food tastings, things like that. I mean, the lawn is very large there. So I think that there are still some things where, as we move through this village process, we could definitely come up with some ideas with the local businesses too, because I think everything that we do there could have some sort of focus on the local businesses and what is it that we do. So, you know, Rishi sponsors a wine and food night or something like that, or, you know, we do wine tasting or the art show, or like, I think there's lots of things we could do that could also generate interest in the district, but then maybe also generate a little bit of revenue to offset those events that we put on there. So I think we don't have all the answers yet, and I would be fibbing you if I told you we had all the answers.
But I think that's a good point, because as Scott was talking, that was my thought, that short term, I mean, it could possibly even be leased out in the short term, so that there's income generated and that money gets set aside, however that happens, to do whatever needs to be done to the space to then ultimately make it what everybody decides it should be.
And we did turn the property over to OHM to work into the concept plan. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back with
Oh.
when that property.
Oh, good.
You know, that connectivity to that,
Yeah,
of that
right,
property
how that fits.
to the parking lot, you know, to where Cascade Roadhouse is and to Orange Avenue down to Tassel Park. Like it could be a really, really integral part of the whole
Yeah.
heart of the village area.
I think that'll help also in the understanding of what it can be.
Mhm.
based on how it fits into that overall plan.
Is there an option that say, hey, the DDA takes 50% of the cost of it and the city takes 50%, and we're both making an investment in the said property for the future? That still leaves us with additional funds that if we want to activate it based upon any concepts that come up, we might be able to move on it pretty quickly within our budget. I'm just trying to come up with scenarios where we can turn and activate the space outside of just a few things on the lawn, leasing it or whatever, that is starting to really drive a longer range plan.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think anything right now is possible. I think we're kind of, we're embarking on kind of new territory for both
Right.
the township and the DDA. So I think any way we collaborate together is going to be good. And we, again, can put together now that we actually have it in our possession, we can kind of put together a long-term plan of uses where we see what we could do there, long-term renovations, if there's renovations that are needed. So I think either or.
I have two questions. One is, if we pay for it, we then direct what the usage is, what that plan is as the DDA?
It would probably be worked into all of the township's assets, kind of like, Tassel Park. I mean, there's a lot that goes on that Parks runs there as far as upgrades and updates and things like that. So absolutely, there would be say from the DDA, of course, but I think we would probably look at that from as being managed as part of all of our assets that we have within the township.
Right,
Yeah.
surely
Yeah. Oh.
it's a township asset,
Sure.
but from sort of a programming
Yeah.
standpoint
yeah.
and that we would sort of lead in that endeavor, that
Mhm.
initiative.
And
Okay.
anything that went there would be sponsored by the DDA for
Yeah,
sure. I mean,
okay.
it would
Okay.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
And maybe
Um,
we'd take it over, but then like, we could always ask the township for funds later, right? It's flexibility.
If
or
they
not.
want to use it.
I think it is. I'm always concerned if it's talk until it actually, if you go
Happens.
back and be like, hey, we need 300,000 and that budget may not be there. And I just want to make sure that when we take this asset, and especially when we have so many things going on, we make sure we have the funds in place to be able to, in the short term, can we have some wins? Right now, outside our front door here, we've got a pretty big win
Yeah,
with a public and private partnership. And I think with this, if we partner with the city, we have additional budget and we know that, hey, we have the intent of, we're going to see how that space could be activated. And now we've got a budget to potentially act on very
Mhm.
quickly.
And just to put it in perspective too, when I did pull the budget, and this year you've got about $1.7 million in capital land improvements that are happening. We took that out. The DDA is still bringing in a revenue that's about $600,000 more than what the expenses are.
Mhm.
So I think the long-term sustainability of the district and whatever it would invest is not in jeopardy.
and that's for the end of this year.
That's projected for
Yeah.
24, yes. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so could you fairly easily, quickly, based on the the increment financing, project what it would look like at the end of 25? As a
Yeah.
going forward?
So clarify what you're,
So
if
we
this
know
was
how,
purchased or what, just where you stand.
like, we know every year
Mhm.
that financing comes in on kind of a regular basis. So, we could just look at this year's number and say, okay, well, it'll be there next year. But I don't know if you've got any additional information on the budget side
Like a
that would
projection.
let us know what it looks like for 2025.
Yeah, this year's revenue is estimated at $1.3 million.
Okay,
So I would guess it might go up 5% for next year because it is
Okay.
capped as to how much we can
Okay.
actually collect. And then the expenses this year are 3 million, but 1.7 of that is the bridge and Friendship Park.
right.
So those expenses will
Which
not,
we won't have next
which you
year.
won't have next year.
That's,
correct.
that's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
What does the bank account look like in it, towards the end of twenty
So at
twenty-five?
the end of 24, your fund balance is estimated to be at $2.5 million. And then with the differences between the revenue and expenses for next year, you'd be looking at over a $3 million fund balance.
Okay,
If we budgeted exactly the same
Right.
and took out the capital improvements.
right.
And we have some pretty big items in there this year that we haven't acted on yet, such as the landscaping up and down 28th Street, the streetscaping. So
Mhm.
there's some things that haven't been activated yet, but all of that, if we did continue that into
Would still-
25,
Yeah,
would still be listed
Yeah.
as an expense.
okay.
So it's my opinion that, given I've walked by there several times, the land is, even if we didn't keep the stone house, the land is extremely valuable. And it fits into what our agenda is, as long as we're in the DDA boundary. And, I'm extremely excited that you guys jumped on it, because I'm surprised somebody didn't get to it before you guys, so.
We had a few people in front of us, but they had some site issues. We don't have those site issues.
You had your elbows out.
Right, Andrea?
So Jade, are we tentatively right now, are we looking at keeping that house? Cause I thought I read,
Yeah,
it's
I don't-
historical, it's
I don't know that,
historical,
yeah,
but
I'm not sure I could ever get the board to approve to tear it down. I
Yeah.
think in your
No.
packet too, this is a picture that was included of when it was built back in the
That's so
early
Yeah.
1900s.
Yeah.
Before those additions, and
Isn't that pretty?
hopefully, I want to open it up and take you guys on a tour. Because the interior walls where they did the additions, the walls are still there. They literally just cut through that rock wall that's about this thick to
Wow.
make the entryways into those, excuse me, into those two areas.
Well, and I think, and you had mentioned, and you may be getting there, but like the Heritage Day is what a perfect place to do it.
Yeah,
As I'm looking at a picture now from Google Earth. Yeah, there's a lot of property there, and to be able to utilize the parking, hopefully at the Folding Warehouse, that people can walk across, because I'm assuming that field is open to the house.
And the house does sit higher, but we could navigate a pathway down there.
that's why I'm interested to see what OHM
Oh, me
comes up
too.
with and how
Yeah.
it ties in. Because I think that will help us understand
Yeah.
what we can do with it.
Mhm.
So what is it you need from us?
$673,258.
We're the idea people.
You asked me, so
We're the
I just,
idea people.
that's what I need.
And you need a decision from us tonight,
Preferably,
preferably.
yes. I mean, we can table it and bring it back up next month. If you want me to bring some more data, I don't know what else I would actually bring to the table right now. We do have a meeting next week on Heritage Days, so more to come on that. Because we are looking at doing something different this year. But we don't know what that's gonna look like yet.
Yeah.
So are we looking at funding the whole thing or part of it or? Sorry, I missed the first thing.
That's open, I think that's open to debate. I think it's.
Because it does fall, it falls just outside of the DDA area.
No, it's
In
within the last
district,
lot.
they-
Ah, got it.
Yep,
got it.
I did
So
verify,
it's
yep.
in the
Yeah,
district,
it's in
okay.
the district.
Well, that changes everything. Sorry, I missed that.
No, it's okay.
So.
So-
I would motion for the DDA to pay for the Stonehouse property
At 100%.
at 100%.
Is that a second?
Don't know yet.
He's thinking.
Cause I understand Scott's point of view, with the sharing with the township as a whole. Since it is falling into the, as we move forward on future purchases of land, building, property, whatever within the DDA. What criteria are we gonna use to say this is part of the township's purchase out of their budget as compared to the DDA? Is there a criteria for that? Do you guys have one right now to say, this one as a township board, we're gonna cover this one. And the next one will go to the DDA.
I think the criteria would be where it falls, if it falls within a district, because you could have other type of TIFs. There's other types of TIF districts that exist in the state. We don't have any other than the DDA. But it would really just depend on where it fell. So if we were going to look at expansions of property for a park, we could pull that out. If we had a parks millage, that would come out of the parks millage. This falls within the DDA. It's an appropriate expense out of the DDA. If it doesn't align with any of them, then it comes out of the general fund, which the general fund in municipal finance is always your most volatile fund because it doesn't have that, it has dedicated tax revenue, but DDAs and other districts like this have very dedicated dollars for specific reasons.
And I guess for me, I could be swayed at the 100%. I'm just coming in at where, man, we may get a proposal that looks pretty awesome and we could have $500,000 that we could move on today because we didn't pay 100% of it. You know, that we could do something to the space and could start work on it at the beginning of 2025. And I don't know if there's a contingency of, hey, if we don't move on anything, we proceed with paying the remaining 50% of the property. Because when are we going to get the proposal back from the group on what they would do with the space?
It should be sometime within the next month. They said this summer that they're riding along line with their
So,
work
I
plan.
mean, if there isn't, like, since it's already within the township already owns it, if we make a motion and say, hey, we will support 50% of it, and then we look at the proposal that they have and we fall in love with a proposal that takes $3 million, then it's just like, okay, that's a bigger project. We'll take on just the space.
And I know there's still a motion on the floor, so we got to get through that, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we understand too, like, there are other funding mechanisms that we can look at
Okay.
as we move forward with these, because these projects that we're going to be looking at from this concept are going to be very, very large.
Yeah.
And it's going to be nothing that someone's going to vote at one meeting, go, yep, pull it out of our fund balance. We'll have to look at something different.
So we may finance, if it's something that's really bigger, then we would look into financing.
And those would be pooled. So, you know, for instance, you know, Eric's here tonight to talk about the bridge, but we have pathway fundings that we're looking at
Yeah.
for various things that
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
you know, is appropriate to give to some of the
Mhm.
projects. So you know, there are other funding mechanisms that we could look at for the future when the project actually comes to fruition.
Okay, my last statement is that knowing that we have the funds available, I guess, and knowing that as you kind of gave us an outline of next year based on the capture that we're going to be getting, we'll have $3 million next year for the budget. And we're going to be left with monies even at the end of this year with all the projects we're doing.
Yes.
I will second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll come on board.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Right, the check.
Thank you all.
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
It was.
And just a quick comment on that too. One of the things that we're working on internally is a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is going to have 5-year projections built into it. So as we move into the 2025 budget season, which we're getting really close to, because last year it was way too late, we will have those projections. So we can really dial in on what is, you know, 2025, 26, 27, and 28 look at with the revenues and projection on revenues, and then where we see expenses come in. So we can kind of, there's a lot going on this year, so I appreciate all your support and.
Well, and I think some of these things that have happened beyond the Friendship Park and beyond the bridge, I guess specifically this, are things that have popped up,
Yeah,
you know. Again, we can plan, as you're talking about the 5-year plan, and we can project
Mhm.
and in conjunction with that, we've had opportunities in the past that have been brought to us too of other properties within the DDA that we'd like, yes, we need to add that
Yes.
to the township because it's in a location where we're very interested to expand or whatever the case may be. And we weren't able to grab those, but
right.
yeah, we've got it. Okay.
Good.
I'm just mumbling now.
No, it's
All good
great.
stuff.
I think that'll be. help-
You guys probably.
Yeah, that's great to see. You know, I like
Just wanted to
science.
stick it in.
Article 7, consider approval of funding for the Metro Cruise.
So this one, it says consider approval, however, it's already written into the budget at $8,000.
Mhm.
That budget's already been approved. It was
Mhm.
approved at the beginning of 2024. Brandon is here. As you know, we've all kind of talked in the past in regards to the Metro Cruise, and they've gone through some organizational restructuring and are handling some things a little bit differently this year. I don't have any personal experience in years past because I wasn't here. But Brandon has met with Madison and Jessica and myself a couple of times, and they are putting, I think, together what seems to be a very organized process to move forward with what they're calling sponsorships for the actual Metro Cruise, from the warm up and then also the pit stop that they're going to be doing. I put all the information that's in your packet if you had a chance to read it. So really, I see this as a really big win for the DDA because I don't know that we've actually gotten this kind of exposure for the dollars that were contributed in the past. I think it was really, here's some money and we brought some volunteers to the day of event. This, we're actually getting some tangible items for the dollars that the DDA is putting in. So it's really just, I'm looking for approval for the commitment of, to continue that and expend that line item out of the budget of the $8,000 to be the warm up and pit stop sponsor. And I don't know if you want to add more to it, Brandon, and give some more history.
Yeah, just a little bit, sure. Good evening, board. My name is Brandon Simmons. How y'all doing tonight? But that was a great info by Jade. Had a lot of that stuff I was going to say too, so it saved me a lot there. But yeah, we just basically wanted to meet the board. I hadn't, met with any of you guys yet, and we're excited to work more in Cascade, really. So the short story of what happened with the management of the Cascade Metro Cruise warm-up, which is the main event we're going to be talking about. That's your Thursday night one that's been going since 2010. So you have a very strong 14-year running event that's associated with the big Metro Cruise event. That committee operated, it was a very small committee of about 4 to 6 people. The originator of that event and the leader had a family issue and had to up and move like within a month. So when she left, it kind of left this huge hole, and the committee was left kind of like, what are we going to do? Well, actually, previously, my group had started meeting with them a couple years ago just to kind of to come alongside them to see if we could do anything to add to the event. We added some like official merchandise we brought down to it, a little bit of advertising and things like that. Well, when this opportunity came along and they said, well, we're looking at either dissolving or maybe bringing it into the Heritage Fest. I think that was kind of discussed too, but neither idea sounded good. And we really wanted to keep this. I mean, when you have a 14-year running event with a good reputation, those don't happen every day. So event lifespans are often quite a bit shorter than that. So my group, so what I do is I own a company called Greater Level. We're a small business, but our main thing we do is Metro Cruise. So we operate all the official Metro Cruise sites, the big one down at Rogers Plaza. We have these new pit stop sites that were mentioned now. And that's the future really of Metro Cruise, where it's multiple stops along 28th Street, not just one huge monster venue, which Rogers Plaza is. A lot of people like that. But these pit stop sites are kind of the new thing where we can connect with Granville and Kentwood and Cascade and, build it up from there. Going back to the Thursday one, however, that is actually the only official Metro Cruise event that's on Thursday. And again, with our board essentially taking it over, we just wanted to, we're in the budget, but we definitely wanted to meet you, and we don't want to take it for granted, but we do rely strongly on support for that to happen. I mean, the big thing with Metro Cruise is that we are a free event, completely free admission, free entertainment, free parking. And we'd like to keep it that way across all of our event sites. So very community-based, very business-based as well. So going back again to the start of Metro Cruise in general, we're in our 19th year now. And that event was originated by the Wyoming Kentwood Chamber of Commerce. So that had to be centered around businesses and business growth and development. Well, we really haven't changed a thing since that, those initial years. So it's still very, very good for business. Overall, Metro Cruise has, I think it's 95 sponsors, partners, equipment suppliers, in-kind trades, just all across the board. We have, again, almost 100 prominent local businesses that partner with us. So again, just looking for that support to continue. The thing that will change is that we will be improving the event, if anything. One thing you do have now is the reach that we have. So this is something that the group hadn't had before, but with our group, coming on board and essentially managing it, we have a much larger exposure and reach that the previous group never had. So things like digital media, social media, billboards, major media. I mean, we have all three major networks, news networks that come down and do live and recorded segments at Metro Cruise. So we can't promise that they'll all come down to Cascade, but you're now in that network of high exposure. And again, what we bring to is the building of Cascade through a major event. I guess we kind of wanted to phrase it in that sense. So of course, not a capital project. It's a little bit different in that sense, but having a major event it's a major draw, you know, for residents and for business growth and things like that. So I won't say too much more. You have a 4-page proposal in front of you. I believe that was emailed along or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago. But again, we gave 2 options. So to be completely honest with you, the first one, the $6,000 package is for the warm-up only. And we didn't want to ask for the 8 because we don't really need the 8. It would be helpful, but we did wrap another package in there where if you were to support us at the 8 level, 8,000, that would also bring Cascade DDA, Cascade Village, into the pit stop event. So again, don't want to be too unclear here, but the warm-up event is always Thursday before Metro Cruise. This year it's August 22. That Saturday, August 24th, is when all of our pit stops running. So all of our pit stops, we have 7 of them this year from Granville all the way down to Cascade. And that's the one that we need a little bit of help for as well. So again, we're only asking for $2,000 for that one. Again, some really good solid exposure for Cascade and, you know, just equipment. There's a little bit of that wrapped into it too. So ask any question.
All
fire
right,
away.
questions coming up to you. So looking at this 4-page proposal, and I'm thinking that some of this may have just been a typo error. But that 4th page, the warm-up package,
Yep.
next to it, it says Saturday 8/24 event only. That should be Thursday 8/22 event only, correct?
Nope.
That's not the warm-up package. I thought the warm-up is
Oh,
only Thursday.
Oh, yeah, yes, you are right. Warm-up would be the
Thursday.
Thursday 8/22 event only. Yep,
Okay.
you're right. You caught that.
And so for the extra 2,000, you're asking us to support a pit stop.
Yes.
Where has this pit stop been identified in the Cascade Township?
So this will be at the same exact spot. So yeah, the area we operate in is the again, in front of the Folding Warehouse. So it's that big square. We kind of take over that whole parking lot pretty much. So for both events, they're going to have different features a little bit. So like for the warm-up event, this is in the front page of your packet, but our major partners are back. United Bank has always been one. Kent County Sheriff, they bring out one of the larger K9 demonstrations in all of Southwest Michigan. We renewed that. Following Warehouse again, they're going to actually be bringing out some following lanes this year to kind of have some fun out there. They've never done that before. Cascade Community Foundation is also going to be our official charity partner now. They've worked with this event in the past and it's kind of came and went a little bit, but that was one we wanted to have a strong connection with as well. So nothing is firmed up on a lot of those in terms of funding. Again, a lot of them are just entertainment pieces or site use, Following Warehouse. But again, in that whole area, there's 15+ businesses, and I personally have talked to everyone actually. When we learned that we could be taking this over, I stopped at everyone and made sure that they just to see what they thought about the event, what we could do differently, anything improvement. And again, it's all focused on starting this event well and future. We're very strong believers in having a vision for this event in the future, not just coming in and trying something out or making it sound good, but just starting strong and then building for the future.
So then the Thursday event has entertainment. The Saturday event has no entertainment.
Well, they both have entertainment, just different forms. So the Thursday event does have a live band, which Saturday will likely not. The Thursday would also have the Kent County Sheriff, or actually discussions if they want to bring any of their pieces to the Saturday event as well. That wouldn't have any cost, but there will be
Saturday
other
event
like kids
is more
entertainment.
of a kind of stop for 20 minutes or whatever, and you kind of just keep floating. It's not, is there a timeline on this Saturday event?
Yes, good question. So the Thursday event will be 4 to 8 p.m. The Saturday for all pit stops is noon to 7. So it's a little bit longer. Food trucks, food units, they'll have 4, I believe, at each event. So that part is staying the same. There'll probably be a little bit larger car contingent. There will be at least 1 or 2 car clubs at the Saturday event. The Thursday event is really just, it's always been a completely free, you know, local cars, collectors, cars, classics, just driving in. We'll still have that section, but then, like I said, Saturday we'll also bring in a couple reserved car club units. Other entertainment Saturday, I don't think it's all been firmed up yet, but actually I think Madison got the Cascade, one of the fire trucks for us, like a ladder truck, I believe. So that'll be a piece of entertainment. There'll be lots of kids' lawn equipment and games. That may be at both, but that'll be a more of a specialty thing on Saturday as well.
And as we reflect back on 2023's car Metro Cruise, again, your Thursday sounds like it's gonna be the exact same as it's been for the last 14 years. Friday is usually a car cruise up and down 28th Street, correct?
Friday, last year, we did try the pit stops to run some of them on Friday, but with it being so new, it just didn't have a high enough attendance to warrant that. So this year we did make the decision to make the pit stops only on Saturday. And that'll help out our vendors, which were kind of spread thin a little bit, and to really kind of focus that into one day.
So then the Friday is intended to be more at Rogers Plaza.
Yes, yes. Rogers Plaza is the only official Metro Cruise event running on Friday this year. So yeah, we're essentially taking a day off of the site for Friday. It's going to just open all back up to regular business. Whereas Thursday, we're taking over the lot. Again, Friday, wait up, open for business, and then Saturday, noon to 7 only. Give it a couple hours either way for setup and tear down, but we'll use the event Saturday. So yeah.
What questions I have?
Any other questions?
No.
Jade, you said we have 8,000 already budgeted for this event, right?
Mhm.
So the budgeted amount, so this year we could sponsor both and
Yes.
see how that pit stop aspect of a Saturday works for us.
Yes.
Since those monies have been budgeted. And if it's, yeah, just being involved with down there for the last 10 years. And talking to a lot of the drivers, yeah, they love the Thursday night thing. And after that they just kind of.
Is that maybe a good opportunity to have like a tent with the DDA stuff, like talking about the things that we're doing, or is that? I don't know.
We host vendors at our site, and actually one of the things we asked all those businesses around, we offered them all a complimentary 10-foot space. So yeah, if you guys have a logoed tent and like flyers or anything, that'd be a perfect site to do that. Of course, sure.
We could move the big sign, right?
Oh, I have another one.
Another side.
I resist.
I do, because the other one, it didn't come in big enough, so I have another one.
So this will not, there's no additional funding beyond what we've already budgeted for this year. Is that correct?
For this,
For this,
correct.
okay.
I think
Yep,
it's
and we're not
nice.
requesting anymore. And if I can steer you real quick to page 3 on it. Again, you would be getting a lot of benefits in return for your support. So we're not even asking for just some, support to help make the event happen. You're receiving a lot. So all the the naming rights, the printed media, I mean, there's vinyl banners, add in our official program, flyers, digital media, social, I mean, it's extensive. You can read that. So yeah, you would be receiving a fair amount of exposure in exchange for that support. So
I think if we've got our budget, and if we have an opportunity to activate the DDA a second time, really, because we weren't getting much benefit beyond that Thursday. So this is kind of like a no-brainer. Let's just see where it goes.
Yeah.
So make a motion to approve.
Since we already have money budgeted.
We don't even have
we
to make
need
a motion, do
for
we?
Anything?
Well, you'd still want to make the motion to make it official cause just because it's in the budget doesn't mean that I can just go spend it. So you would still want to make the motion to approve the 8,000 to go towards the
Okay.
sponsorship of Metro
I'll
Cruise.
make a motion to approve the $8,000 to go to to both the Thursday and the Saturday Metro
second
Cruise
that.
warm-up package.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed.
thank you, board. Appreciate it. And I'll hang around. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards if you'd like. So
Thanks for coming.
sure. Thank you.
Have any more voting things?
Yeah, so actually, I think Article 8 is the last voting item.
Yes, and I made a mistake. Melanie was supposed to be here tonight to present that. That's in regards to the Memorial Park that she's partnering with the Kent County Garden Club and
Right.
redoing that. She's not here tonight. We had a miscommunication. So we actually can skip
Move-
that.
Table
Let's
that.
even table that until next
Okay.
month.
To
Mhm.
the next meeting. Yeah, I saw that they're looking for, they've got the plan. They're just looking for funding at this point.
Isn't everybody? Yes.
Okay, so Article 9, staff updates.
Yeah, so I did realize too that I think the staff update that I introduced last month, I inadvertently did not get it into this packet that had the blue line, so I will get that out to you tomorrow when I go back and update it. But I did want to bring to your attention the DDA project progress form that's in here.
Yeah,
So these are all the active projects that are happening just in the district. So I know it's only one sheet, but this is just what's happening in the DDA. There's a short explanation status of where we're at. And then clearly you can see that everything is green at this point. So everything's a go, everything's on schedule. And with that, what comes behind that is actually some information on the Cascade Road Bridge, which Township Engineer Eric Thorne's here, so he can update us on how that project's moving.
sounds good.
Real quick, what is the time on the grand opening for the Friendship Park on the 29th? Do you know what time that event?
11 o'clock.
Clock.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I will make sure to include that in what I'm going to email all of you tomorrow.
Perfect.
All right. Cascade Road pedestrian improvements over the bridge, the Thornapple River. We took bids on May 21st for the project and we received 2 bidders. Davis Construction was the low bidder. They came in at 1.252 million. Fortunately, a bit higher than what we had anticipated. Engineer's estimate was 997,000. So it is a little over. But it does include a lot of the items that we had talked about, I know here, as well as with the Board of Trustees. What we end up getting with the overall product is on the northeast side, where the bike path is now, or the pathway is now. It's going to be about an 8 to 9 foot wide pathway. Right now on both sides, it's about 5.5 foot. And then on the other side of the road will be about a 6 to 7 foot. Both of them protected walkways. So they'll still both be elevated on the roadway. From the roadway, I should say. The roadway, the lanes will narrow slightly. And on that southwest side, there'll be kind of the substructure will be modified so that there's a little bit more room to build that pathway. So both pathways, 6 to 7 feet on the southwest side, 8 to 9 feet northeast side. There'd be a vehicle rated barrier between the roadway and both pathways. So a vehicle can hit that and it won't go over the pathway. It won't go through the pathway. It's designed for a vehicle to hit it. As well as on the outside of the walkways, there'll be anywhere from 5'3" to 5'6" inch in total height fence. So on the northeast side, actually, it'll be all fence. On the southwest side, the remaining concrete barrier will remain on the outside of the walkway, and there'll be a shorter fence on top of that. But it'll be a 3-inch difference on both sides. Driving down the road, you won't see that barrier still on the southeast side or southwest side, I should say, because of that vehicle barrier will block your vision. So you'll have one kind of continuous aesthetic. And then a major point, one of those items that just kind of made the budget keep going up and up was the street lighting. There'll be 3 additional street lights on either side of the roadway. So those are installed on what's kind of like a bump out from the pathway. They're not in the way of the pathway. So they're kind of on the outside of the bridge. They're the same street lights that are used in the DEA area right now, right? There's a lot of street lights on Cascade Road, the kind of more ornamental black. I think they're 14 or 16 feet tall. Kind of the gaslight lamp style. That'll be what's on there. So driving down Cascade Road, it'll continue that aesthetic. Those same street lights, the fence, the guardrail, it'll be brushed black metal. So it's a step above just throwing out, a bare metal guardrail out there.
Is there anything we have to consider with the village concept, like with the
So OHM was sent the engineering drawings and the concept from an engineer's perspective a while ago, so they actually did have input on the fencing.
Okay.
So this is incorporated into their concept as well. They were in total agreement that this is kind of the entryway to the DDA. So this definitely will have that ornamental welcoming feature into the village.
If we decide also, I know that power lines and all the lines, a lot of places bury them under the bridge.
Yeah, that's,
I think
that
it
has
does
not been tackled with this project. I know since I got here, the project was moving it was too far
Yeah.
down the path. And that is extremely expensive. The community actually has to pick up the cost to do that.
Okay.
Utilities will not participate. in
If we did
contributing.
do that as part of the concept, the bridge would support that. You wouldn't have to rethink any of the engineering.
I can't say that without truly looking into it. One would think that would be possible, but as nature is, I imagine there would be a considerable cost to go with it. I know on the southwest side, there are conduits in the bridge. I'm not sure. I think it's communications that might own those conduits, but they wouldn't necessarily be suitable for all the utilities. So suffice to say, I think you could engineer it, but what would it cost? It would probably be a pretty high sum. I know we had talked also with our engineer about widening that west side it's going to be 6 to 7 feet. So it's going to be slightly narrow. It's going to be wider than it is now, but it'll be slightly narrower, more narrow than the other side. And that's simply because those conduits exist in there and there's very possible like an asbestos component to that. And so they looked into widening that further, but to do that was on the magnitude of hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So these things all possible, but as already the budget's high, the
Yeah.
cost is already inflated very high.
Got it.
Are you talking about the line that goes across Cascade Road
Yeah.
with that light on it? There's there's a street light fixture that hangs from that conduit. Is that what you're referring to?
I think visually there's a lot of lines. I don't know what they are.
Oh,
If that's like
oh.
our focal point, like
Yeah.
that, the river and all that, and then
Oh,
there's these
yeah.
ugly lines all over it. Just a thought.
That might be a consideration down the line.
Yeah, once we
with
get,
some specific areas.
yeah,
that-
once we get the concept back and move forward on
Yeah.
what that looks like, we absolutely can look at that and make that into our estimated cost of line item to bury those lines. And that could be one of those variables that either gets omitted or gets included in the long-term project, for sure.
Okay.
It might be helpful, that light that goes across,
Mhm.
that's hanging over Cascade Road. A lot of times it's not working.
Lights are a lot easier to get rid of than, say, utility power lines.
Well, actually, we need the light there. I mean, I'm sure it will help with the pathways,
We
on
can get-
either side of the bridge for pedestrians, lighting there.
Mhm.
But it might be helpful to at least look at that fixture, that current fixture that's there.
Mhm.
See if there's something newer that could be put on that line.
Is that the road
Has
commissioner?
more light that would light that, because the traffic coming down Cascade Road with this new change, I think more light would be better at night along there and
Couldn't agree
making sure
more.
that that fixture works properly.
Yeah, we'll get with the road commission on that, because
Yeah.
that's a road commission thing. So
Okay,
we have a
all
better
right.
relationship with them than we probably do
Yeah.
at the utilities.
It's just along with this project, I think
Sure.
people need to see what coming in there. It's pretty dark.
This is a really, really minor point, but we usually put flags up and down the bridge for major holidays, and with the new fence, making sure that there isn't like this, oh my gosh, we can't put flags up and people will miss them, or we just know it won't, eyes wide open. But just wanted to make sure, like, when we do that for major holidays, because that does help with the entryway of people coming into Cascade.
Yeah,
It's something people expect.
although you
I
can't
believe-
really see them because they angle them out
Yeah,
over the
I get
river.
it.
Well, we'll have an opportunity to kind of look at all of that because it's all gonna change. So this
Mm-hmm.
fencing, I think, is a fencing that has attachments
Yeah,
on it,
fencing
so we can do
compliance.
that.
That's
So once it
perfect.
gets in, we'll be able to go ahead and maybe that's something the DDA wants to look at
Yeah.
and make that decision, what gets put on that bridge.
And OHM looked at the fencing style that's gonna go on there,
Absolutely,
and they
yep.
thought it was appropriate. for-
Yes. Mhm.
I can make just one more comment for the record. I know that we can't do anything about it and I speak about it every time I'm a resident in the Cascade Village area. just to put on the record, I'm still very concerned about the speed of the traffic going through there. Lately, school's been out, there's been tons of kids on bikes and stuff coming through there. So I just want to put on the record that I'm still very concerned about the traffic speed.
We just saw an
Not that we can
accident
do
today.
about it.
No,
There was an accident tonight at 28th Street and Cascade
Cascade.
Road.
But I
Yep.
think we're getting
Yeah.
closer though, because from a traffic calming standpoint, if these, you know, lanes are narrowed just a little bit, and then there's some traffic calming exercises that we can do, I think we're gonna get closer and closer to making it feeling a little bit more dense, which is gonna slow down traffic.
Mm.
And I think there's a little strategy there of when you do a speed reading through that area.
Mhm.
I think
Because it's counterintuitive. The slower they go, the more power we have to lower the speed limit, right? It's kind of
Correct.
weird.
Exactly.
And so I think I think this is our first step into getting us closer to something like that. And then I think as we reimagine the space, knowing the tighter and closer we make it feel in
Mhm.
that area,
Mhm.
you are going to change human behavior. And then we could always just stand out there with signs as they read. As
I'm
they
just
just
saying,
read
I go
speed.
down there,
You know,
just
I
very
100% agree.
You see it all the time.
It's-
Did I hear that someone was hit, a pedestrian was hit crossing just
28, yeah, just
recently?
recently, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, we've had someone go off the bridge before
Yes,
too, not
right.
so long ago. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's,
So real quick, I know we touched on the lighting and maybe I missed it, but those pathways, the pedestrian walkways that there is some lighting there. And built into the project, or no, will they be dark?
oh,
There's
No, I-
3 lights on either side of the bridge,
Mhm.
equally spaced at about the same spacing they are down Cascade Road.
Perfect.
It's like 100 to
Just-
100 and a quarter
Yeah,
feet.
having a business there, I can tell you that in the fall and winter when it's dark as all get out at 5. I think light does aid in deterrence and security as well. It's albeit a minor deterrent, I think it does help.
so biggest
Sure.
question too is timing.
Yep, so November 15 is the substantial completion date. Construction's supposed to be about 8 to 10 weeks. It's staged one side at a time. So traffic will be able to flow both ways. It'll be shifted during construction. It'll go to Board of Trustees for approval on June 26. So contractor will be under contract, I imagine, in July. I would expect that they'll probably use the fall for the construction. So I would expect substantial completion to be around November, that November 15 date. And if it's earlier, then I would be happy.
So it will be during a challenging time with traffic.
Yeah, as a
School
business, having
back
a
in.
business in that area, that is a worry for me. Any
Mhm.
time traffic patterns are interrupted. It's a huge cost to local businesses, whether that's our restaurants downtown, our shop, the boutiques that are there, anything like that, people. They do avoid it, whether they take the back way through Ada, which then. Supports businesses in that corridor and not in downtown village. So I think, an efficient and swift completion. Just putting it out there that it does come at an expense anytime that there's backups or. So I'm not sure if there's any ways to mitigate any of the hardships for backups or.
On the bright side, it'll be slower. But the contract was written.
Yeah.
The-
No, it's,
I can appreciate it. I completely understand
oh
it.
man.
It
I
does
get
affect,
traffic
yeah.
When my sphincter gets
Yeah.
tight, like it's.
They're they'll want a beverage, that much more.
I'm saying overall. But
I'll go on the
know
record to
that-
say I'll still be drinking.
That small businesses really feel it when there's construction. Is
Yeah.
all I like.
Yep. So the contract was written with that November 15 completion to give the contractor some leeway. The idea being it gives you better pricing. It's hard to appreciate that when the bid's over engineer's estimate in this case. But that was, I'm sure, the general consensus that we had going into it. And that's not to say they might be out there mid-July and be done earlier as well. And it might not be 8 to 10 weeks. I try to be conservative in estimates, and I know other engineers do as well, because sometimes things happen.
The only other thing I was gonna say, and I'm sure they'd end up figuring it out, but hopefully that the township will be considerate to the school system and just say, hey, we want to give you a heads up that your buses, you may want to leave. Your routes may be 10
Oh,
minutes
yeah, we-
earlier than the past.
We'll,
just
we
based on-
coordinate with the school district. Yep.
Agreed.
And probably
Between that and the road
like
commission, yep.
Local churches that have
I'm sure
a
they'll figure it
larger
out too, yeah.
congregation too. You'll run into that.
The good news is it looks like you'll still have 3 lanes, so you could have a turn lane and then
Yeah.
both directions.
It'll be hampered. The traffic will be hampered, but it'll still be accessible.
But it's progress. We're moving forward.
Yep.
This is
Do we
good.
need to make a motion to approve more budget on the project? Is that?
Now that you bring it
where
up,
we're
if you
at?
would like to.
Eric, here's your chance,
I was
throw your
gonna-
number.
Personally, I was gonna walk away, but.
But Melanie missed out, so Aaron's up, so.
Will because we were splitting it with the pathway. They were gonna do one side and we
We
did one
gave,
side,
we
right?
gave a specific dollar amount
Mhm.
Yeah.
to the project.
Yep, $250,000 was given to the project from the DDA.
Nobody's asking for any more
So that we don't-
right now.
Okay, well, let's keep it that way at the moment.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Yes.
Thanks for
You're welcome.
the update.
The only other update that I had was, one, you saw the sign at the corner of Tuffy. So that went up. We're debating on whether we should put up another one and reconfigure how it is, but at least it's out there. If you hadn't had a chance to actually scan that QR code or go to that website, there is a project webpage. Please go to it. Let us know your feedback because that is a working document, working page that Jessica is updating all the time. So as our projects get updated, that page gets updated.
Nice.
So it's supposed to be the latest and greatest for what's going on, not just in the village, but across, there's a whole nother section to it which has all the projects going on in Cascade.
I've heard a lot of people say they're excited when they saw the sign and
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
A lot of positive feedback.
And we cleaned up the
Yeah.
site, like we vacuumed, kind of blew some of the leaves and just kind of cleaned up the site the best we could. So,
But I had a few people say to me, oh, that sign down there is great and
Good.
just knowing what, is.
what's coming, there, that progress is coming,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we are still working on the bylaws, so we hope to have that draft for you at the July meeting as well. And I think that's all I have for staff updates
In the
tonight.
bylaws, once you have those drafted, that's for the hotels, correct? Or the?
Oh, no, this
bylaws?
is
Oh, for us.
the
Oh,
DDA
gotcha.
bylaws, yep.
Any updates with the hotels?
I'm trying to remember when we actually adopted, the board adopted it, so now we are working on the actual implementation. So the sheriff's office, the fire department, community development department, myself, the building department, we're all working on what does it now, we've got the ordinance, we've got the law. So now how do we put that policy in place and when do we had our first meeting last week. We've got, and thanks to Andrew, we've come a long way as far as like what this application is going to look like for the hotels. And then it should all start coming together very quickly to where we then can get the word out to the hotels. Some of them have already inadvertently found out about it. As fire is doing calls out there, they're kind of dropping that this is coming. The interesting thing is the managers of the hotels are actually welcoming it. It's the owners that we're going to have the issues with.
The managers it gives them something to push back on.
That's exactly
is great.
exactly what the fire department said. So,
Nice.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
oh yeah, the work just got started though.
Yeah.
He says last week, it was yesterday. That's how long our week has been.
Oh, it was yesterday. I'm sorry. It was yesterday. So. And the attorneys, of course, are at the table because we want to
Mhm.
make sure that we do it right, so they can defend
Oh,
anything.
that's
that they get
good.
Called out on.
That's really,
Yep.
that's great progress. Article 10, any other business we need to discuss this evening? Nope. Next meeting, July 16th. And with that, I'll take a motion to.
Is that
adjourn.
something we want to keep on the books? I know you had mentioned sometimes you guys skip the July
Yeah.
meeting.
Do, yeah.
We usually will leave it and then if any, I know it's vacation month. So if we find that we don't have enough people, then we usually will
Okay.
cancel it.
So Jessica and I will send out something in a few weeks just to kind of gauge where we're at. and
That'd be
make that
great.
Determination. Okay,
That would be
sounds
great.
good.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.